look, I guess. Oh wait, my fucking mic. Wait a minute. Hello, my demons and ghoulies. Welcome back. If you can tell from just a few seconds of audio that I am sick, shush, no you can't. No you don't. You don't hear it. It's not going to stop me from making this video. Today, I wanted to talk about a little project I've been working on for a while. This is probably going to be one of two videos, but I wanted to talk about, as some of you may know, my OCs. I'm sure everyone has them, everyone wants to gossip about them, but I'm tired of not talking about them, but I also want to have a sort of concise place where I'm putting them all together, so why not make a video? So, as someone who's slowly building up an entire world with my OCs, I'm making another video of that eventually. I wanted to do a little like side world that I've been working on. The scope of it is a lot smaller than the entirety of the underworld, which is like a whole actual world. But I want to do this because this world is like a little tidbit of what the other video is going to be like. So think of it as like a test run. So I can get a little comfy schmumpy with doing something a little bit more elaborate. Plus, this world actually does sort of tie into the other ones. It's just a lot smaller. It doesn't connect very cleanly, but when the other video comes out, it might make a little more sense. But also, I just really want to talk about my OCs without trying to determine if my friends actually want to hear about them or not. They all say that they do, but I have no idea if they're paying attention, and talking to the void is a lot easier. Because that way I don't have to burden my friends with the insane amount of talk I'm about to gab. So there's really only two characters in this world to really pay attention to, which is Samuel and Hannah. Hannah is a fairly typical human who, at this point, is just reaching her early 20s-ish, and Samuel, meanwhile, is a nearly 7-foot tall eldritch entity from another plane of existence entirely. Hannah, meanwhile, is technically homeless. She is traveling constantly and relies on Samuel, while Samuel relies on their bond in order to stay in this realm and on Earth, which we'll get into a little more. Are they good for each other? Absolutely not. Are they stuck together? Kinda. I think it's almost too much hassle for them to find help elsewhere. Plus, I do think that they like each other in some capacity, but I don't think that they're really going to ever admit it, at least for a while. So, diving in. Buckle up, by the way. I have like 4 pages of script. I don't know how much that means in terms of talking, but I'm going to be putting up at least some images meanwhile, and also maybe like some speed drawing of like a updated ref sheet for Samuel, maybe one for Hannah, as well as reference images as to what I'm alluding to, if I can find a good image or two. That way I don't have to draw it. For Hannah's story, I know that I want the beginning and formative years of her life to be really rough and traumatic, so that by the time she graduates high school, she could pick up and leave home. It just, in the middle of the night, pick up and leave. She doesn't want to be here no more. Something along the lines of a physically abusive father and a neglectful mother. It's so weird talking about trauma this way, but it, kind of sets up the story. Maybe while she travels, she can find a place to stay and attend a couple of classes at a public college, but I don't think it's likely, especially when you're a bit of a grifter. Money is pretty tight. I don't think it was something to spend your money on, but I do think that there's definitely some free classes you can easily schmooze your way into, so she's definitely someone who wants to expand her knowledge a bit, but food is very important too, so. But in her being on her own and still rather young, she eventually runs into Samuel, who offers her a bit of security and a slight helping hand. She's queer, hell yeah, and stubborn, hell yeah, and a bit abrasive, of course. She knows this partnership with Samuel isn't really the best idea, but it's kind of her only option. She doesn't want to go home, she doesn't have any friends to stay with, and she just needs to keep moving in order to really sustain. She comes to rely on him the more she stays by his side, but also she gets to learn and gain some independence with some of his encouragement. Who would have thunk? Samuel, on the other hand, is rather cold and sharp-witted, as well as a sharply dressed guy on the hunt for human flesh. He is the kind of guy who's playing 4D chess against himself in his head. He's always one step ahead of the curve, whether you think he is or not. He's also queer, so that's fun. I go back and forth on whether I want him to only hunt people who've done terrible things, swoon, or because it makes the flesh taste better or something, or if it's just everyone in general. If, on one hand, if it's bad people, it's a bit more fun because he's doing bad stuff to bad people, so does it make it right? Does it make it better? Even though he's doing it with bad intentions, technically, and he's making someone who's innocent, Hannah, help him in this, but he doesn't care. It's, I don't know. It's fun. There's a lot of complexities to it, more than just like, I'm hungry, I'm just gonna find whoever I want on the street to eat, aka, which would be most likely homeless people, so that it's a lot easier for him to get away with it, which might be how he met Hannah. I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts there. A lot of this story really is fairly loose, except for Samuel's world, which is what I've been kind of focusing a lot of my energy on. But it's just like, I don't know. I like talking about it. I think it's a fun concept. Plus, like, I want him to be morally gray in that regard, so I do think him being like, bad people I eat, but also like, what about the families that get affected afterward? What about making someone who's innocent help in this when they're no longer innocent? I don't know. Fascinating. Regardless of eating human meat, I also think he's eating the memories and emotions from those people and storing them. The stuff we'll dig into a little later. With that, I think Samuel would then gain a little bit of power with every meal, at least, you know, from gaining new expectations, perspectives, that sort of thing. That does then skew it if he's only eating bad people, but he's also not he's not a good person. He is a bad guy. Duh. Anyway, with that though, he's giving a fraction of his power to an underling, a proxy, aka Hannah, in this case, and use her as a vessel or an anchor of sorts, allowing him to stay on Earth, or technically in that plane of existence altogether, as long as they need. So if he's without her, there is nothing really to bind him here, and I think he would have a harder time surviving and thriving on the climate of Earth. Sort of like, I guess, if you were going scuba diving, or if you were an alien coming to Earth. It's just very, very foreign, and you would have a hard time adjusting. I guess for scuba diving, you just can't breathe. You would just die. But something to that effect. Well, at first, Samuel is only used to seeing Hannah as his anchor. The more he interacts with her and learns the world through her eyes, which is, you know, really pretty down and rough, I think the more he starts to become very, very protective of her. And I think of it as like a dark romance, except it's a little doomed, and they slowly pine and soften for each other over the years. I would think slow burn, very, very much so. I don't think that Hannah is also his first anchor, but I think it's the one in a long time he actually does care for. I think I mentioned a little later on, one of his first anchors. I don't know, I haven't decided how old Samuel is. I know he's very, very old. He's not gonna give away his age. I do think he has probably a fair amount. I don't know if also having an anchor means that the anchor's lifespan is also extended. Again, there's a lot of ups in this. I mean, that's kind of why it's fun to talk about it, because I get to, as I'm talking about it, kind of throw out ideas and questions, and are they for me? Are they for you? Yes. Yes, they are. Just get to talk about it, open a conversation. Why not? But what is this world that they're currently in? Well, a lot of the world and the story takes place on modern day Earth, like today. So there's not really any changes to be made or talked about. It's just Earth. There's not like any magic. I don't think there's any other creatures necessarily. It's just Earth. But I do think this is the same Earth that connects to the underworld. So I guess in that regard there are demons and such, but not a lot of demons come to Earth, but demons die, or humans die and then become demons and then go to the underworld. So in that regard, they are sort of connected. And if you don't know, the underworld is where Hex, hi, where I'm from, and that whole world and kit and caboodle and can of worms. Though what I've just said about Samuel needing an anchor, he's able to open portals to transport, I should say teleport. Transport's not really the right word. From one location to another, but also open them back to his home realm, as well as hide in shadows and control them. Sort of like, he's very Slenderman-esque, and that's not like, that's kind of intentional. I wanted him to, and the more I was making him, the more I was like, I'm calling back to my old roots as a child and loving Slenderman. And that's not a bad thing, because I think that this is fun. It's different enough that it's distinct, but it's fun. And I don't care that I'm calling it out. What is a lot more interesting, to me at least, to establish is Samuel's world. Over the past couple of years, I've developed a huge love for liminal spaces, weirdcore, dreamcore, all stuff in that similar vein. I love the horror aspects of them, but I also love when there's just weird empty spaces that give you a strange, eerie feeling. Like, there's no entity there, but you feel like you're being watched, you know? That sort of, I like that vibe. I don't think liminal spaces in the back rooms necessarily need entities. I think it's fine that they have them, but just the feeling that, like, you're being watched, someone's might be there, I think is very fun. It's a lot more fascinating to me. This is the groundwork and basis for Samuel's world, but of course there is like a much more spooky vibe because he's a spooky guy. His world, which I don't actually have a name for, and I don't know if he does either, is entirely made of liminal space pockets surrounded by shadows. Everything is black and red, and while at first I had made that as just like a red means scary sort of aesthetic vibe, I did actually try to come up with some sort of reasoning behind it, so I don't need to, but it's a lot more fun to me if there is at least some slight explanation for some stuff. I don't think everything needs an explanation, but again, I don't know. Sorting that stuff out really itches my brain. Since everything is fairly dark, I don't think light necessarily exists here, but I'm sure, I think, I could be wrong, that red is the color on the light spectrum that travels the farthest. So, you know, if you were to make everything dark, red would be like the only surviving color of light, I think? I'm not sure. But also I know that if you take your color wheel and you make it grayscale, that red is the darkest color out of all the others. Which I think is like why sometimes if you're in a room with red light, it still feels very, very dark. Like you can't see. It's because it is a dark color. Even though it doesn't seem like it. Science is weird like that sometimes. But I hope I'm explaining this well enough, but I'm gonna put pictures up. I'm gonna have to. I know I do. Their realm is entirely black and only consists of places that have strong memories attached to them. A library full of books, a children's playground, a flower field, stuff like that. Stuff where people have traveled, people have consistently visited and, you know, interacted with the space, stuff like that. But it's all bathed in black and red, very liminal, have a very eerie black haze hanging in the distance. Like you're in a bubble and the edge of the bubble is black, like it's domed in. Like the sky would be either red or fade to black. And there's just no sun, I don't think, visible, or if it is, might be fake, because it's just like a memory of a place. In the inky blackness between these pockets are countless smaller entities, perhaps entities like Samuel that haven't found a form yet, like it's his baby version, and once he's gathered enough like memories from these places, he'll actually find a form, or I guess get born. It's a little up in the air. I kind of see them as like spirits almost in this lingering space. They could be like leftover memories or something, and then once they conglomerate enough and, you know, mesh themselves into enough of a form, boom, they're born. I don't know. But if a human were to enter this space, I do think that It is, again, similar to the analogy of going scuba diving or an alien coming to Earth. You just can't mesh, but it would be a lot more painful for a human to enter this world than a entity from this realm to enter Earth. So upon a human entering, it is painful. You get afflicted with physical pain throughout your entire body, like you're getting ripped apart from the inside out. You're also hearing screams internally in your head, like 1,000 voices, just the cacophony of the damned in your head. This is a lot more based on dreams that I've had and nightmares that cause me physical pain, at least in the dream. Like, I wake up and I'm fine, but I don't know, it's just a very neat aspect of, again, that Slenderman effect of immediately being in pain and just like your ears are ringing and you're holding your head because you're so in pain, that kind of stuff. Other than that, I don't know why it would happen. Again, maybe it's the memories of everything negative compounding together and wanting to attach themselves to a human. I don't know. Did I just come up with a reason on the spot? I don't know. I think it's spooky regardless. I'd like to think that unless an entity like Samuel is escorting a human there, it would be incredibly hard, if not impossible, for a human to live there long enough to survive. I also don't really think there's food. So, speaking of Samuel, his kind, as in species, is very solitary and territorial, so I don't think they would really interact too much or really seek each other out. And in fact, I think once they're born, quote unquote, they're likely to just look like adults loaded with info on how to live, and then are sent out by themselves to, find other realms, go find stuff to eat, memories to collect, and, gain more knowledge and stuff like that. In that way, I guess they're quite parasitic, but honestly, while the story between Hannah and Samuel isn't really totally fleshed out, this vid is mostly an excuse to talk about Samuel's world because I think it's really fun. Again, love liminal spaces, so if I can make a twist on it and make it sort of my own in a way, hell yeah. But I'm also going to toss out some fun facts about the both of them because I don't really know where to put them else in the vid. So with Hannah, and I'm super eager to hear what you guys have to think about this so far. I'm eager to put up a bunch of pictures and stuff and sort of vibes. I will say, before I get to the fun facts, there is a sequence in one of Kane Pixel's Backrooms videos where he's crossing a bridge and it's very, very dark and there's red light everywhere, and that was also something that very much inspired me to add to the world. It was already the vibe I had, but when I saw it, I was like, that's it. That's kind of what I want it to look like. They fucking nailed it. But for the fun facts, for Hannah, many years ago, I had a Slenderman OC who was a proxy to the big man himself, and her name was Hannah, and this is the only thing that's the same between the two of them, and that's basically it. But because of the similarities between her and Samuel and a proxy and Slenderman, they're a little on the nose, so I couldn't resist mentioning it. I gotta respect my roots. The Hannah that I remember, she was very demure and quiet and polite, and I think this Hannah is a lot more of a rebel and would not like the other Hannah. So that's literally all that they have in common. But, like I said, respect. I'd like to think that she somehow gets enough money to take a couple self-defense classes, but of course doesn't have enough money or time to complete any of it. But, that would be something worth, I think, investing your time into. And I'm sure that there's maybe a free class or two that she could find. She'll absolutely bluff into making people think that she knows more than she does, though. She is that bitch. She liked school for the most part, high school. She had moments when she'd do well and, coast pretty well when life wasn't too hard at home. I think for the most part, because life was hard, it affects her grades, but her teachers knew that she was trying, so they're not too hard on her about it. They don't know what goes on at home, of course. I'm not sure if I'll keep this, but I'd like to think that Hannah and Samuel met when actually Hannah was a baby, and that she thought that this was like an imaginary friend. that maybe, you know, she confided to in the dark when she was young and her parents were arguing or something. But as she grew up, she was like, this isn't real. And then she sees Samuel as an adult. She's like, wait a minute. This fucking like Spider-Man point meme. She loves to drown out everything with music. So I do think when she left home, half of her bags maybe, I don't know, was like a CD player with little headphones and some CDs, because I don't think she would have had enough money, or her family would have had enough money for like an actual iPod or an iPhone. But you know, CD players aren't terribly hard to come by, and neither are CDs. So I do think that's also something she would scavenge for, is just like, CD, can I get some music bumping, and just blasting it whenever she's on a bus or a train. Now for Samuel, I made him so finely dressed, but I think it's actually not clothes, like it's just shadows or essence of his homeworld, and he could change them at whim. I do think that he probably at some point saw something similar to the outfit that he currently wears and was like, oh, that's slay. And he was like, that's mine now, which is kind of fun. I don't know if he can necessarily do it for others, but he definitely loves to dress himself up very, very nicely. Since his kind, I don't think reproduce like at all. I think, like I said, they're just kind of born. The concept of intercourse is very interesting to him, and he's been known to use that as a form of manipulation. Since, you know, that's very much based on emotions, and there's some very intense feelings, I think he loves to see how humans squirm and the different aspects of it, just in general. But he's a little bit of a hoe, too, so... I think he loves gossip, hearing what people think of others behind their backs. He's an absolute people watcher, and I do think he kind of turns Hannah on to that kind of stuff. So I can imagine them sitting at the park, having like a little bit of a meal, and they're just like shit talking all the people that are walking by, like, oh my god, look at what they're wearing. I see him picking his nose, like their dog just shat on their stuff, like that kind of stuff. I think that would be a nicer moment between the two. He, like I mentioned before, he has had other anchors before Hannah. I don't think he's ever told her how many, but I think his first anchor many years ago probably formed a lot of who he is today. Since it is his first, I think, again, like, it's his formative years, and it kind of molded him into who he is. But I think he was in love with him and didn't realize it until it was too late. So he's got like a little bit of a doomed yaoi. He is, I think, very... I bounce between a crow behavior and black cat behavior, because I think he'll find random food bits or trinkets for Hannah and then just give them to her without any further context, of just like, not even, here, I found this for you. It's grabs her hand, opens it, puts food or whatever in there, and then just walks away. I think it's his way of caring and or showing that he cares, but words are hard sometimes. So that's how he just shows a little bit of like, hey, you need to eat. Hey, you need to drink. Here, I found a shiny for you. I think you might like it. Just stuff like that. I want to also establish, I don't really have necessarily a villain unless it's stuff like the police. Like if Hannah gets caught helping Samuel, obviously Samuel is an otherworldly entity. So it's really, the blame would fall on her, because he could escape no problem, but for her it's a bit trickier. Would Samuel just leave her behind? Would he help her out? But I also think, along with a human sort of risk, there is also, I think, probably a risk from Samuel's realm, where I think if there is another of his kind in the area that they're stalking, of course, I think there would be like a territorial dispute, and I think that they would get into a fight, and I don't know, maybe other entities also just come for Hannah specifically because she's an anchor and she's got power from Samuel and she can hold her own, and that might be really attractive to other entities in terms of like, I want that. I want them to serve me sort of vibes. But that's sort of all that I've really got right now. This is just a little tidbit. I've been rambling on for a bit longer than I thought I would, truth be told, and yet somehow I don't feel like I've divulged enough info, but that's kind of all I got. So if you've got questions, headcanons, thoughts, I would absolutely love to hear them. I want people to expand upon this if they want to. I would love to hear people making like little OCs for it too, but I want to talk more about the things going on in my head, and I'm really tired of not doing it. I know that my friends are like, please ramble to me, but I really do struggle and have a hard time telling people. So I would much rather just record it and just spread it like wildfire if I can. But thank you all so much for listening to me ramble on. Like I said, hopefully I have another vid like this with Hex and her shenaniganery coming soon. It'll be much longer than this one. But I look forward to it, and I hope you do too. Have a lovely day, night, or evening, wherever you are, and treat yourself to something nice in the meantime. Okay. Bye!